Welcome back to the Telos Buzz. Evan, it's great to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I'm so glad my stream is working again, so I can join you this week.
Yeah, we missed you last week.
The most frustrating thing, and it's great, but I mean, the stream just fixed itself. Like I don't know what was wrong. I have no idea why it didn't
There you
work
go.
in the first place. But hey, happy to be back.
You gotta love it. Awesome stuff. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today. For those who don't know, this is our weekly live stream where we go over some of the latest news in the Telos ecosystem and bring on a guest to chat about the work that we're doing. I am super pumped to have Nicholas Lopez from Kanda Weather, a really cool project that's leveraging the Telos blockchain to create a system that gives accessible weather data to places in the world that don't have access to that. It's super impactful, really cool, real world use case of what blockchain can actually do in the physical form. And I say physical form because Nicholas is even going to have a little demo of one of their tools to bring up for us, and I'm excited for that. I won't spill too much, so you have to stick around and see it. But yeah, Evan, how are you feeling about today?
Oh, really excited. I mean, Kanda Weather has always been one of the most intriguing projects to me because it's a real world use case, as you said, for blockchain. And I just think it's a great use case too. It's kind of fascinating. Weather's always been of interest to me. How people even record the stuff is crazy. Funny little tangent. I met a guy, like an old guy in a parking lot directing cars one time, and he told me he was like responsible for like inventing weather radar, and he was just like volunteering to do this thing. I was like, holy crap, this is kind of like an important guy I just met here. But anyway, he didn't have time to explain to me how it worked, so I still don't
I
know.
invented weather radar. Goodbye.
Yeah, he was busy.
That's amazing. Well, it's going to be a fun one, guys. And drop any questions in the comments if you have any. And why don't you let us know where you're tuning in from? I'm coming to you guys actually from Ontario today. Evan, you're also the same, right? Not to spoil it.
Yeah, I'm like not far from you. Same
Got
city.
Thomas in the chat here from Toronto. Actually, I know where he's from. But yeah, if you can let us know in the chat where you guys tuned in from, you know, we've got an audience from around the world, and this is going to be a fun event. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and as always, vote for Telos Culture as a validator candidate on the Telos mainnet. A great way to support all the work that we do. Yeah, we finally made it into a standby position, and we're very grateful for the support. Without further ado, though, let's get into some news real quick, and then we can bring in Nicholas. I'm super pumped. I don't want to drag things out too much longer.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive in.
All right. So first up, we've got Unitap. This is something that came across my radar just today, and actually, I had a call with one of the founders today. Unitap is live on the Telos EVM. You can head over to unitap.app. And this is a cool token faucet that incorporates the Bright ID system. So you can actually go there and get a little bit, I think like 0.01 Telos to cover your gas on the network if you're transacting. So I look at this as a really good way to lower the barrier entry. Again, one of the most important things I think with Web3 tech is lowering that barrier to entry and making the technology as accessible as possible. So Unitap allows people to log in, get some, a small amount of Telos to cover their transaction costs, so that they can, use the network regardless of if, it's a transaction of value or anything like that. And I think that's super important to just getting people excited about the tech. But beyond that, what's really cool is their Bright ID integration. So they'll be launching a token tap soon as well. There's the gas tap, and that's to cover the gas. And they're also launching a token tap, which is there to essentially give away like governance tokens and stuff like that. But it uses a login method with the Bright ID system to combat Sybil attacks and make it a more secure way to distribute governance tokens, to my understanding. And the last thing I was told they might have coming up is a prize tap as well, so that somebody could give away an NFT or give away some tokens as a prize, and you can do that all on this platform. And the integration with Bright ID is, again, super cool way to secure things. So check that out at unitap.app and go get some free Telos.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great project. So yeah, it sounds to me like they're basically integrating like a proof of personhood with a almost like a UBI sort of thing.
Yep,
Like
exactly. Yeah, and any project, I believe if there's maybe a little bit of a barrier entry to list your token, but the idea is any project can go on there and list their tokens and leverage that if they have a UBI token or a governance token they want to incorporate with it.
great. And right now you said they're paying in RAM, which is what, Telos, like a very small amount of Telos point.
Yeah, they'll it's not RAM, it'd be just they pay you some Telos and then you can use it to cover your gas fees on the EVM. Yeah.
Right. And then the next level of tap would be another Telos tap, like a bigger Telos tap. Do you know?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
We will. That's exciting though. Speaking of exciting developments, the Telos core team releases a technical update. The primary focus is the release of EVM 1.5 before the end of August. The Antelope Leap 3.1 release will be scheduled once the core code is finally released. It's anticipated to occur in early September. So, really soon, next couple of weeks. Stay tuned for more on that.
Super exciting stuff. I just dropped that report in the chat there. Too much stuff to go over in one talk here. They are talking about the EVM. They talk about a lot of stuff. They talk about, like you say, the immediate stuff they're doing, but then they're also talking about Open Block Explorer, Telos Scan, EVM 1.5, EVM 2.0, the super node, Telos, governance and arbitration, Telos native upgrade to Antelope Leap 3.1. It goes on and on and on. There's a lot of in-depth details in here, so I encourage you to go check it out. Yeah, it's a really in-depth update. Last thing we should talk on, and I apologize, I'm going real fast through these because I want to bring in Nick because we got a lot of stuff to cover. But the last thing is Pomelo is wrapped up. We might have talked about this a little bit last week, but Pomelo has wrapped. Great, huge success. I should find the total amount that was distributed to all projects across the platform somewhere. I'm not sure what that is. Definitely over 300K, funded towards public goods. In particular, we're working on a report right now of the impact on the Telos ecosystem, which you can keep your eye out for. And with that, we saw that there is at least over 56,000 US raised for Telos related projects. So those are projects with a Telos integration or that mention Telos on the roadmap somewhere. So really great to see that there's this level of funding going towards the Telos ecosystem from this platform as well and helping to build for the public good.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that was price match funding and how much of that was initial. Because a lot of our watchers may know it's quadratically funded, which is a wild mathematical formula to essentially empower the poor and the many over the rich and the few.
Yes, exactly. Well, to go off of that, I have those numbers here. I think it was 16,465 that was contributed. So there's the contribution round where people donate. That's across all of the grants that we found. So was 23 grants that we pulled, and then what was matched of that was 39,615. So that again goes back.
So more than doubling the initial. Wow.
Quadratic funding, right? Very cool stuff. And for those who don't know what quadratic funding is, we've got tons of videos on our channel to check out. Last thing I'll mention before we wrap, and then we should head over to this because just before this event, we ran an event with Fortis. They just announced the Fortis Exchange. I won't say any more, but if you want to learn all about it, head over to the Fortis YouTube channel and check that out because that was a fun bit of alpha from this morning. We should bring in Nick.
Absolutely. Let's get him in here with us.
Before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to the people in the audience. We've got Schiefer here. Great to see you. Thomas from Toronto. Schiefer's from Puerto Rico. And we got Wild Monk here as well. Always a pleasure to have you guys.
He's from the wild, so we don't know.
Exactly. All right, let's bring in Nicholas. Nicholas, great to see you.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, yeah. I really like the intro you guys talked about with Pomelo and those the grants. It's fantastic.
You guys had a grant, eh?
We did, yeah. We had one for our weather balloon project, which we might or might not get to today. We'll see. But we have another product that we'll eventually talk about. But yeah, it was a very smooth experience, and it was great to be part of the connection between EOS and Telos. It was great.
Awesome. Yeah, I was really happy to see that you guys put a grant forward, and weather data is obviously a public good and something that is very very needed in the world. So I think that's a good segue point for us just to jump in and talk about that problem and how you're trying to solve it. So
Yeah.
maybe you
Sorry,
can
just
just
before you
talk.
mentioned,
You
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to say, yeah, perfect match, you guys, and Gitcoin, Mellow, anything like that. The public goods, quadratic funding, that sort of stuff. It's a marriage made in heaven, right? You know, I know some people had a harder time maybe like fitting their project into the brief, right? Whereas you guys would just have to like raise your hand and say, hi, we're here. So anyway, it's great to see everyone involved now. So yeah, anyway, so we can get to the proper.
No, all good. Yeah, and I think that's just a good point to jump in. And for people who don't know what Kanda weather is, maybe tell us really quickly, give us your elevator pitch on what it is and the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, so we're looking at democratizing weather data in an actual decentralized way. So we have different weather sensors around the world that broadcast temperature, pressure, humidity, and store all of that data on the Telos blockchain. We do that because there's 7.5 billion people in the world, right? And if each one of those people uh, wanted access to their weather every morning, that would be 90,000 requests per second. And the current internet simply can't handle that. Maybe a giant company like Google could handle that, but of course, we want something like climate and weather data to be very decentralized so that anyone can get it. And that's why we're storing all this data on different servers. And it's funny. Yesterday, we're working with another group in Canada. Actually, he's in Calgary, Canada, and he has an air quality project. And he was wondering, oh, how do I get the data from past, all the data that I've collected with my air quality sensors? How do I get that data? And instead of me having to give him an API and like showing him, exactly what queries to do, I can simply just say, point him to the Telos Hyperion node and say, hey, you have a list of 6 different places where you can actually just get this data yourself. You don't need me to do it. It's a fault tolerant way to check previous data. So it's like a really interesting use case for something like Internet of Things, where you're sending really small packets of data, and since those pieces of data are so small, you can actually store them on chain at relatively low cost. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect different groups of people to access the weather data that we collect, and also incentivize people to collect the weather data where they're located. We have about half of our sensors are located in Africa, so Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon. We have 1 station in Kenya now, and we have 2 in South Africa. And we also have a weather miner product for U.S. and European markets. So there's a little bit of weather for everyone.
That is wild. I didn't realize you guys were that distributed now. How long did it take you to build that out? Like how long have you guys been, I guess, in production with this project? And yeah, because that's quite a lot of units.
Yeah, the back end is really complex, so it took like a year to develop that. We send it over a LoRaWAN network. 2 actually. We use the Things network, which is kind of a more like European open source, just kind of do it yourself kind of network, and then the Helium network, which has their own token and incentivizes people to place their hotspots, which is the things that receive their packets in different remote locations. So you get paid a little bit more if you live out in the country and you're hosting a hotspot, because if there's a sensor out there, it could use the data, as opposed to a city where there's literally there's 230 hotspots here in Dallas, for instance. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to host another one there. But of course, people just do it because they like the idea of providing this decentralized internet where you don't necessarily need to rely on an ISP. That's what makes our devices secure. You don't need Wi-Fi credentials and all these sorts of things. It's simply you set it outside and it transmits over Helium. It's very easy to use. So it took a long time to build that back end, but now we're looking at just making applications with it. So we're partnering with different web developers and people that actually want to use the data for real life use cases. So it's an expanding project. We started from literally the ground up, from the hardware, the little PCBs that transmit the data, all the way up to the blockchain. So now we have the solution. We're really trying to grow the project.
Yeah, could you tell us a bit more about the technology? Obviously, you know quite a bit about it. What's a weather miner, and how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a device that uses low power, so like a really small battery, and we actually have one right here. So it has a little solar panel on top, and this entire enclosure is actually 3D printed. So we'll see pretty frequently that people are interested in just 3D printing themselves. So I'll send the uglier piece of hardware, which looks like this. This is
Cool.
the actual sensor itself, and it's an open source project, so people can figure out how to turn it on. They know how to. I had one person in Nebraska, actually in Omaha, that actually looked at his data over serial. It's something that I do to debug my system. So there's a large community of people on the Helium network and IoT enthusiasts that really like kind of exploring these things. So they'll just kind of make it themselves, 3D print the enclosure, and then slap the solar panel on top. So it's kind of an all around good project. And we also would love other people to 3D print these and then maybe ship them to places that are more difficult to access. So it's kind of a manufacturing benefit too, to have other people 3D print their enclosures, because it's lower cost for me and it gets people involved and incentivizes them to take care of their sensor and make sure everything's working properly.
Yeah. I'm a not just a graphic designer. I also do like physical stuff, ceramics, pottery, that sort of stuff, packaging. If you want to talk a little more about this sometime, we could maybe think about some other manufacturing processes outside of 3D printing, like CNC, laser, stuff like that. Anyway, we might not want to get into that now, but I'm just putting it out there. We can talk about other ways to maybe get more of these things manufactured. I wanted to ask too, what does that little sensor pick up? What's all in there, and what data can you receive from this miner?
Yeah, so it just has a little tiny temperature sensor on it. So it's very ugly, but the majority actually sends the data. The actual temperature sensor is like this very tiny silver square in there. So that measures temperature, pressure, humidity, and it packages that up into a data packet and sends it over Helium. And from there, in order to get onto Telos, we need to bridge that. So we have a backend that just essentially stores the data on Telos. So it's just a JavaScript library that takes it and pumps the data in the form of EOS-IO actions like over there. In terms of the actual hardware, so we just have like an 18650 battery, which is something that looks like this. It's almost everyone's laptop has one of these apparently, and probably multiple. And they're actually used in the initial versions of Tesla's models, because you can just kind of arrange them in like a hexagonal pattern and stack a whole bunch together, and you make like a super battery out of tiny batteries, because it's so low cost to make these very small, efficient 18650 batteries. So that's what we're doing. Sorry, I didn't want to get too like technical into it.
No, it's great. I asked for technical
on like the technical side, so that's where my head is. But yeah, I would love to explore that manufacturing. CNC is something I'm interested in, injection molding too. So we can get into that later for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I'd love to chat with you about it. And just before we get to the next question for Liam, I also wanted to ask, clearly you're very knowledgeable. I'm not sure I caught, what's your role at Kanda Weather? What do you do there?
Yeah, so I'm the founder. I mean, we're a small company, so it's just me and someone here in Dallas that helps me make the enclosures. But I'm doing all of the emailing of people. You'll probably reach out to me if you contact me via email or reach out to us. We're not super. We want to be more active as a BP. The best way to contact us is obviously Telegram. But yeah, my role is the very technical side, and then working with people to kind of expand the project, and working with students in West Africa to develop the sensors, and even do our initial project, which is doing the weather balloon launches. So I kind of do a little everything. I think as startups, we tend to do that,
Totally, but founder title. Okay, perfect. Got it. Thank you.
That's awesome. So you have these units, and they collect the data, and then you're saying it sends it over the Helium network, and then it gets onto Telos through you were saying Antelope kind of tech. But how is it like what happens to it once it's been collected? How do people access it? And like, you know, what's next down in the process?
Yeah, so we have an active app. So there's an app that just kind of queries the data directly from the blockchain and posts it. I don't know if I could share. Could I share like a screenshot or like
Yes, you should be able to share screen or at the bottom there should be a share screen.
Yeah, right in the middle, it's a share screen button there. You see it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I see it here. Okay, perfect. So this is actually a sensor that went online in Omaha, Nebraska. So if you look at the lat long, you'll see that, and it was updated 3 minutes ago. We shipped it like 2 days ago, so the temperature is a little spiky. I think for this portion right here, he was actually just hosting it in his house. So temperature was like 70. Like if you look at the Fahrenheit, it's like his room was 71 degrees. So there's different parts of it, and then of course we show humidity and pressure as well. And this all just updates in real time. So it's pretty easy to use. And here, let me unshare the screen. But yeah, that's just like one sample of an application. Actually, that application was developed by our intern in Cameroon. His name is Bayang Mumbo. And he is a web developer. He won our hackathon with Tai Kai last year. So he's been kind of interning with us and developing these web applications for us to be able to show the data to people that they're collecting.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So if there's people that are interested in the web development, of course, reach out to me. If you're interested in the back end, we could talk more. And then if you're just interested in hosting a sensor and getting 25 cents worth of Telos a day, there's people out there too. And that's actually the most valuable in terms of getting the data and kind of beta testing our product. So, I'm very excited to work with all three different types of people.
While we're on that, I guess, how could people get in touch if they do want to, get more involved?
Yeah, so you can just shoot me an email, kandaweather@gmail.com. If you are interested in purchasing a miner, we have them on sale right now.
That's this link here I'm going to drop in the chat as you're chatting.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And so you can just host one of these. If you live in a big town or city in the US and Europe, it will work. We beta tested it. It's very easy to use. And in fact, it's as easy as just taking the little mount that we'll send you, and you mount it to either a post or a pole, or we actually had someone do it on a tree. And at first we were kind of like, is that a good idea? Is it not? Turns out trees are actually very useful and hold up really well because they're really skinny. They're kind of like pole shaped, right? So, and they also offer a lot of shade. Our sensors have like a little overheat, so they'll estimate temperature sometimes like just a little bit hot. So having them in the shade is perfect. So I always recommend like, if you have a skinny tree, just throw it up there. And yeah, I don't know. It just works at this point. So we're very excited.
Actually, about that. If I was in a city, say, and I put it on like a pole next to a busy road, it's probably going to pick up a hotter temperature, right, than if I were to put it, say, in a tree deep in the wood lot across the way. Like, do you have any preference for where these things are placed when they're in urban centers? Like,
good question.
Yeah, I think by general rule of thumb is some place that has good airflow. It as long as it's not like on a wall or in someone's room, usually it kind of just gets filtered out. The good thing that one benefit that we're using with blockchain is the fact that we can actually query which sensors are around a certain sensor very easily on the blockchain because EOSIO allows this. So we actually have this quality control smart contract that just listens for an observation and compares it to the standard deviation of the sensors around it. And then if it's way out of range, it'll flag it. We may reduce the reward. I'm not sure if we do want to do that or not. But it's something we're looking at, and we could do to kind of incentivize, like, hey, your temperature reports just as well as the other sensors around it. Therefore, it has like a very good trust score. So that's one thing we're looking at to kind of filter out someone that's just keeping it in their basement, which is like honestly probably the worst thing you could do, to collect data, because it'll send over, through your window and it'll reach the network. We just have to have like some very simple quality control mechanisms to do that. So we're figuring out. It's actually pretty robust at this time.
Right. And I guess too, my last question as far as placement would be, is there anywhere that's like, it's too high, such a thing? Like what about balconies or something like that? If someone just has a nice apartment view and wants to stick it on their balcony, would that work?
Yeah, that works best. The general rule of thumb is the higher the better. It has better reception, and it's also kind of gets out of the way of like the ground heating up and buildings heating up. So a balcony, a patio that's up high is also fantastic. And ideally, I mean, I had someone that was like, "Hey, you don't want the temperature outside my condo," and I'm like, I kind of do. I think that like 30, 40 feet of elevation would actually be like really high quality data, but he didn't believe me. So I was like, all right, that's okay.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. It's true. So if you have a nice balcony, hit us up, get one of these sensors. Speaking of, is there a cost to start up a miner? I should just follow your link here, but do you just pay for the miner and have it shipped over, or is this something that you guys take care of on your end?
Yeah, right now we are selling them to U.S. and European customers. We are looking, of course, at Africa too. So we want if someone wants to sponsor them so that we could actually deploy these a lot more at scale in Africa, we can do that too. Of course, anyone that is in Africa and wants to purchase one of these, of course, can too. So there's a couple ways, like you could, just hit me up on kandaweather@gmail.com or my Telegram, and you can pay in Telos. So like, a small business, I love Telos, obviously, and I love Helium too. So there's a lot of Helium communities members that also like the weather sensors. So accept HNT, Telos, and then of course our website accepts like PayPal and Stripe and credit cards and all that stuff. So there's lots of different ways, and setup is, again, like super easy. Just finding a place to mount it and making sure that it works for about a week. And then, it's pretty hands off after that. You'll start receiving Telos once per day. And right now the smart contract pays out about 25 cents per day. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to our time here. I just wanted to put out there.
We can go a little long though. I mean, are you in a rush, Nicholas, or?
Oh no, not at all. I got a 3D printer. Like that's gonna take a while. So
okay.
Yeah, I'm not in a huge rush either. I'm having so much fun here. I just keep asking more and more questions that aren't on our question sheet. But Chief asked a great one about rain. Any problems there? Is that what the capsule is for, or?
Yeah, that is a big part of it. So we print in a specific filament that's rain resistant. It's called PETG. And that kind of makes sure that the water doesn't absorb, or the plastic doesn't absorb the moisture, and then it drips into the sensor, because electronics and water do not mix. That to be honest, that's been an issue in the past. If it's raining really hard, sometimes it'll hit the sensor. So we had a version 1 that had the plates at like a slightly different angle. So like it's really hard to like measure exactly what's going on, but we thought that like rain was hitting the plate and kind of going inside, and like, kind of all you need is like one water droplet that's going to like short one tiny component of it, and then the whole sensor kind of just goes to permanent sleep, and then it's a whole thing. So yeah, that's kind of why Taylor's here, to kind of help with the forming of the enclosure, and making sure we're getting rid of those like temperature biases, and making sure that it's going to stay waterproof in like a really big rainstorm, because we want it to be able to kind of just sit out there. Lifetime, we want to be a year. Right now it's around 3 months is kind of like what we're hitting consistently. So having that like year time frame, I think, is perfect, because that's kind of when people expect to have their rewards pay for the sensor itself. And it's just really nice to say, hey, your entire sensor paid for itself over 1 year too. So that's kind of a goal of ours.
That's really cool. Cool. I'm going to keep going down this question sheet. We've got a couple more questions to go through. And I'm going to skip your question. I hope that's all right. We had a question here about the Helium network, but we've talked a lot about them. So what I think would be really interesting to hear about actually is the weather balloon side of things. And this is something that's new to me, actually. I found it interesting. I didn't realize you guys had these sensors that people could purchase and just put on a pole or on something like that, because this started with a weather balloon project, right, of students launching these weather balloons. So maybe tell us a little bit about that initiative, that side of things, and maybe how things have changed too. Is this aspect new where people can just take these units and mount them outside their house, or am I just maybe I missed that point?
No, that it's a natural progression because we started out with the helium, or sorry, when I say helium in this sense, I don't mean the network. I mean like, actually using helium to get our weather balloons up. Yeah, it's a total like, I guess like coincidence that helium is the name of the network that we use. But yeah, the backends are really similar, and we found that it's really difficult to actually launch the balloons in Nigeria in particular because it's really hard to get it's like a simple thing here. Like we would just go to like a party city or something to get one of these helium tanks that you would use to fill like 50 tiny balloons. In our case, we get one of those tanks and we fill like a relatively much bigger balloon to send it up. But in Nigeria, it's very difficult. So the cost is like 3 or 4 times more because it has to be imported and all this. And this, for a long time, drove me crazy. And I was like, it's really not worth it for us to do this. We need to find a better solution. And what we came up with was actually something that I'm really proud of. So right now in Cameroon, we're working with university. I think it's pronounced INET, and it's like a French university in Cameroon, and they are setting up a hydrogen weather balloon launching station. So we're continuing with the weather balloon project, and I actually built this myself here in Dallas. So we're essentially taking rainwater, and if you remember from high school science, water is H2, and then you have O, and then O2. Basically, you can split water when you just have passing electricity. So this is like a simple process. It's not like we're not doing fission, we're not doing fusion. It's a very simple reaction where it's called electrolysis, if anyone wants to look it up. And you're just taking water and you're making hydrogen and you're making oxygen. So what we're doing is just having 2 solar panels sit either aboard like a wooden structure like I have here, or like on a roof, and power this electrolyzer with 200 watts. And I'm actually converting rainwater. So we're taking rainwater, filtering it, deionizing it through some filters, and then taking the hydrogen, putting it into a tank, and the oxygen we just kind of like let flow in the atmosphere, and it blows away immediately.
Right, you're free. You're just giving back. It's all your byproducts are weather balloons and oxygen. That's so cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
It's the most green process I can imagine, but it was the solution to this problem of like helium costs so much. It's so easy to produce hydrogen if you're safe with it, right? So that's why we're going in this direction. And I built a prototype. I actually have this right here, but it's absolutely ugly, and I won't show you. And in fact, it's just I can just send like a video later or something. It's just like a wooden frame at this point because I sent all the equipment over to Cameroon. But yeah, the university's setting it up. They actually are having an event tomorrow to demonstrate it at the university in Douala. So we're hopefully going to get some weather balloon launches next week, maybe even after they complete it tomorrow. If they have some prototype test demos, we have some test LoRaWAN temperature sensors that they're going to send up. And yeah, we've done maybe 25 weather balloon launches total. And I'd say maybe like 10 of those were with the hydrogen method. So it scales very well. It's very surprising how well it scales. And we're really excited to collect this data for climate because there's such a sparse network of weather balloons, even though it's like entirely just ridiculously critical. In West Africa, there's just no stations because of government funding. Bureaucracy, corruption. It happens constantly that the most important stations, like the Douala Cameroon station run by the National Weather Service there, goes offline, and then it affects computer models like for Southern Europe that rely on that data because the equator is so hot, right? That you need, in order to forecast for regions even very far away, you need to know what the profile of the atmosphere is over somewhere like the equator, and then that data doesn't make into the model, and you get just terrible forecasts everywhere. And it's just crazy that you only need like 10 to 20 stations or so and see like enormous impact. And it's such a small thing that, such an easy thing to set up that it just drives me crazy. That's why I'm really looking to kind of fund the sensor project to get our weather balloon project going, because that's what's most useful. This is very fun and very exciting, and I think there's a lot of people that would love to host weather sensors in the U.S. and Europe, and we're really going to use that revenue to kind of support the weather balloon project and continue these activities like we're doing in Douala right now.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. And as a weather, from the perspective of a potential weather miner, right? It's like kind of cool. Like, I think people want to know what their weather looks like around them and compare it to other people's, kind of, and say like, oh yeah, not only am I getting something that I can use personally, but I'm giving back to the community, which is fascinating. So yeah, I love the updates on that hydrogen stuff. That's very, very cool. I wanted to mention to the crowd again, if y'all have any questions, we're getting to that time to ask them. So think about them, guys. We're just covering our very last few. So actually, this one we've kind of already answered. So yeah, what's next for Kanda Weather, and how can we learn more?
Yeah, I think next we're just going to be looking for people that are interested in hosting the weather sensors. We do have the project tomorrow with weather balloon demonstrations in Douala. So yeah, to keep in touch, I mean, follow us on Twitter. We're at Kanda Weather. We post pretty regularly about different, weather and climate statistics. We have people that kind of find useful information and provide it and get like good feedback. And it's kind of an educational take because weather and climate scares a lot of people, but they want to learn more about it. And that's why we're really focusing on community and finding people that are really interested in weather and learning about it and helping support the project. So yeah, we love Telos and we're very excited to stay with Telos and keep going in the future. And of course, if you guys want, we are a BP, as is Telos Culture. So of course you can vote for both of our BPs on the Telos mainnet network. So yeah, I don't know. That's all I'll say. Like, yeah, very exciting.
Good
Brilliant
stuff.
double plug there. Yeah.
I meant to mention that actually. I meant to ask. Yeah, you guys do have a BP, right? And what's the name of it?
Yeah, it's just Kanda Weather. So we're still using that. We call these the Ascension Weather Miners because we're looking to rebrand later, but we're still very mostly focused on Africa. So that's why we still keep the Kanda Weather name.
Beautiful. So guys, go vote for Kanda Weather. Show them some love. They're doing impactful, meaningful work for not just for Telos, but for the broader world, really, right? This real world public good. I love what you guys are doing, and they're bringing all that data and putting it on Telos, which is awesome. So check them out and make sure you vote for them. Anything else that we should cover? It looks like we don't have any more questions. Cool to see that Shifra says she's going to try to host one in PR. And she's going to bring the thoughts to her team. We've got May DeLeon here saying she's already following your socials. So yeah, really awesome just to have you here and connect you. May DeLeon is asking how to vote. I can answer that one for you. You can either head to the Decide Voter mobile app at decidevotermobile.app, or you can do it in your Anchor wallet if you have Anchor, or go to EOS Authority. There is a vote page there. I'll try to find it and throw it in the chat as we're wrapping. Anything else on your end, Nick, that we didn't get to touch on that you might want to talk about before we wrap?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for hosting the podcast and to show my support for the Pomelo team and the EOS Network Foundation for having these grant programs that we can apply to. We also applied to the Ethereum Network or the Ethereum Foundation because we were like, hey, we have an EVM because Telos is amazing and we have an EVM. So if they wanted to like support the project, we did hear back from them yesterday and they said they won't support it. So it's awesome that like a group like that Pomelo has such a low barrier to entry for us to become part of it, for people to learn about the project and get a little bit of micro funding. So yeah, I think that's just an explanation of Telos because, I mean, where else can you do that? There's not many blockchains where you can have these grant programs that are successful. And what do you say? We had 100, doubled the number in season 3 than season 2.
Something like that.
Like
yeah, I don't have the metrics on me right now, but yeah, it was great engagement. We had over 50,000 was raised across all the grants, and yeah, it's really cool to see things just keep growing right now.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Other than
Nick.
that, yeah, thank you guys so much. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. It's really great to have you here, and we're really grateful for all the work that you're doing in the ecosystem. Again, everybody, I've dropped a bunch of links in the chat there on the side, and so go make sure you follow Telos Culture socials, follow the Kanda Weather socials. I'm going to drop those one more time in the chat as we're wrapping, and don't forget to vote for Telos Culture and Kanda Weather as a block producer. And last but not least, of course, subscribe, hit the like button on this video, and stay in the loop. Stay tuned for our next episode of the Telos Buzz coming out next week. Rumor has it we're having Teland, which is a very cool NFT project where you're purchasing the NFTs, you're actually helping contribute to the growth of farmland in Peru. So very cool project. Come out next week.
Winners of Mission NFT as well, so we can
winner of NFT. Exactly. So we'll see you guys all next week. Thanks again, Nicholas.
So much, Nicholas. Yeah, it was so great chatting with you, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, guys. It was great talking with you.
Likewise. All right. Have a good one.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye now.